All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another live stream that I'm doing on this channel. I was intending to have a regularly scheduled video for you today, but I released a book a couple of weeks ago, and really, I think 2 weeks ago, and I'm just still very tired from that. So I haven't sat down to write scripts and film videos in a little while, and I'm going to be doing that this week, but I was just simply too tired last week to have anything of quality to pull together for you. But I want to still show up here and engage with our community. So I'm doing a live stream. This will be another Q&A live stream like I've done for the past couple of weeks. If any of you have any questions about writing, about self-publishing, about my books, about anything about your books, stories that you're working on, if you're looking for someone to bounce ideas off of, I like to just make myself available to you in a Q&A style, and you can ask me any questions that you like. So if you want to ask me in the comments, and then I can discuss them and share my thoughts and all that stuff there. For any of you who are watching the replay and could not make it to this live stream, I wanted to start this one off by just asking for a little bit of a poll, or just like um, feel out when kind of works best for people for me to do these streams. I know we had one comment that said that I always tend to do them at this time, which is true. I'm trying to make them most available to people all over the US. And because I'm in the US, and like I'm trying to include the East Coast and West Coast and try to pick a time that's after work, but I'm also very open to doing an occasional live stream at a different time in the middle of the workday, like so it's after work for people viewers in Europe. So if you want to come to one of these and you can't because of the time that I do them, please drop a comment down below and let me know what time of day would work best for you. And I can keep that in mind when I schedule my next one. So yeah, that is kind of all I have. Oh, we got a question. Let's see. Do you have advice from transitioning from screenwriting to novel writing, struggling a little bit? Yeah, so I've actually done quite a lot of screenwriting. I did a lot of screenwriting in college. I'd say that the biggest challenge for me with screenwriting was just that it's a very different medium, and obviously it's a very visual medium. And in novel writing, you get a ton of interiority. And so it's very different when you're like writing a screenplay. You have to like show things through dialogue and through visual tells. And like when you're writing a novel, you suddenly have access to all of the inner monologue of your characters that you didn't have when writing a screenplay. So I would say to maybe not jump in and use that to the extent, like just because you have access to all the interiority doesn't mean that you can cut corners. Like you still need to prioritize things like showing emotions instead of telling emotions, revealing things very like subtly and in intelligent ways, and not necessarily through long info dumps and things like that. I what exactly are you struggling with? Because if you tell me a little bit more about what you're struggling with, maybe I can have more specific thoughts. But I much prefer novel writing just because you have so many more words to tell your story. But screenwriting is a very good exercise because it really like taught me a lot about dialogue and taught me a lot about things you can do. Like one thing that I really like to do is when a character is like having a really big emotion, you can do things like, focusing on an object or something that they're paying attention to and using different visual tells or different props to tell, like to convey what a character is feeling. And that's something that I learned from screenwriting. So yeah, if you want to expand on it a little bit in the comments, I can absolutely give you my thoughts. All right. Oh, you just expanded on it. So writing longer scenes. Yeah, so I think that scenes are roughly the same in like screenplays, or no, I don't know. I actually don't really remember. It's been a while since I've written a screenplay because screenplay I wrote was in college. But the anatomy of a scene, regardless of whether it's in a movie or a novel, is roughly the same. And like in every single scene, you have a beginning, middle, and end. And I like to think of every single scene as appearing on a story arc. So you have like a little inciting incident at the beginning of the scene. You have some sort of rising action in the middle of the scene, and then some sort of climax and like climactic moment that shifts something or moves the story forward, and then a resolution that pushes into the next scene. And when I'm visualizing a book and like a story arc, so the entire book has a story arc like that, and then every chapter is like a little mini story arc that you place on your larger story arc. And so everything, like, it still follows that same structure. And so I think that if you're struggling with writing longer scenes, it's not necessarily maybe a screenwriting thing. I've made a couple of videos really digging in detail of like the anatomy of a scene and figuring out like exactly all the parts that go into a scene. So I'd maybe take a step back and think more about the structure of scenes and then see if that helps like flesh out your scenes a little bit more. Because there are a lot of different things that you can do with writing scenes. All right. Oh, cool. I'm excited that you're reading the love trials. Yeah. I I laughed my way through writing this book. There's so many little lines in there that just crack me up every single time that I read them. Like I know it's a really dark and heavy book, but it also like just is kind of super funny to me, and I giggle. I giggled the whole time I was writing it. I mean, mostly. Not during some scenes, obviously, but yeah, there's the main character is pretty funny. I really, really enjoyed writing her inner monologue. And I'm so, so excited that you're reading it. All right, let's see. When you launch a book, how many physical copies do you order for selling in person, giveaways, etc.? And does Ingram Spark let you order wholesale as an author? So this really depends on your launch plan. I have launched books where I've ordered 0 physical copies of the book. Just because it wasn't really in my launch plan. When I was launching the Love Trials, I knew I wanted to do a really like special physical print, like pre-order print run. And so I ordered many copies of that book, but that's because I knew that I would have interest and like I kind of had a pulse on like maybe roughly how many I would get. And I also started collecting pre-orders for about 3 weeks before I actually placed those orders so that I could actually get a sense for how many I would end up needing. I ended up placing orders, like I ended up getting double the number of hardcovers that I actually first intended that I would get and like planned to get, just because I was having a lot of issues with printers. Especially with Ingram Spark. I had a lot of issues with Ingram Spark for this launch. But I think I ordered 250 paperbacks and then 420 hardcovers for the Love Trials launch. I am going to be doing a video breaking down all of the numbers for that and like sharing exactly which printers that I used, how many copies ended up being sellable, how many copies came damaged, whether I was able to get refunds from any of these printers. But I used Barnes & Noble, Ingram Spark, and Book Vault for that whole order. And I have a couple of those flagged for selling in person. So I'm going to sell those on consignment at like local bookstores. And I am not going right now to like, I'm not doing a ton of giveaways or anything right now. So I haven't earmarked any for that. And I'm still selling them all direct on my website. So I have hardcovers still available, and I'm literally probably this week I'm going to end up going through all of the rest of my stock and figuring out all of the concrete numbers of like how many I can still sell and how many are damaged. But Ingram Spark just sent me a really, really horrible batch of books, and so many of them are not usable. So I will come back to you with an update once I have one. But I'm definitely learning a lot. And yeah, how many you order really depends on like whether it's your first book, how big is your mailing list, and how many pre-orders you're getting, and like what the general interest is. But I recommend, if you're running a pre-order, like don't order 500 copies of your book before you kind of have a sense as to whether people want to buy it or not. Because I've done that before, and I ordered like so many copies of They Stay that are like still sitting at my parents' house, at my house, just at my in-laws, like everywhere. So yeah, I would definitely recommend trying to sell them a little bit first. And Ingram Spark does let you order, as an author. You can order author copies, which is like you just pay for printing and for shipping. And I'm pretty sure, just off the top of my head, I mean that they're pretty cheap. I mean, well, they're not cheap. The shipping gets expensive. That's going to end up being in my video too. I will end up like I'll share all the cost breakdown of all the printing, because they're actually really not cheap. I don't know why I just said that. So yeah, it lets you order wholesale, but it depends on like the size of your book, on the weight, and just all that stuff, what ends up being the cost. But I don't recommend printing with them, because at least for hardcovers. I don't recommend doing their hardcovers with jackets because they just literally like at least I'm still unpacking my boxes, but over 75% of mine came really, really damaged. So I loved Book Vault. I had a great experience with Book Vault. All right, let's see. Oh, we have some more questions that are coming in. What is a good way to learn or structure a video game story? Do you have any experience with that? Unfortunately, I have zero experience with that, so I really do not feel qualified to weigh on this at all. I would say probably just treat it like a regular story, with absolutely no experience. This is someone who does not play video games, who has never written a video game story, so I really have no idea what I'm talking about. But if it's a story, I think that there's a lot that you can learn from just general storytelling principles and general story arcs and general story structures. And I would imagine that there's a lot of crossover there. All right, let's see. I never wrote fiction, and now I'm thinking of doing a book series. I started the idea in mid-March. Since it's a fantasy book series, how long should I world build and background before writing? I think that this really depends on you as a writer, and it depends on the complexity of your world. I have written books where I've spent a really long time world building. I've written books where I've just kind of jumped right in and started world building as I go. Usually what I do is because I like to write story first and world after. I just kind of I sketch out the general structure of the world that I want to write in, and then I just start writing in it, and then I explore the world as I'm writing, and I will come up with new rules as I'm writing because like if I'm writing and I'll be like, oh, it'd be really cool if a ghost did that. That would be really creepy. Then I'll just have the ghost do that, and then later on, after I've done my first drafts, I will go back and figure out like, okay, I've had this ghost do that thing. How are they going to do that? And why do they do that? And then I build the world around it. So I tend to not spend a ton of time world building before just because I don't want to pin myself into a corner. I don't want to write myself into a corner. I don't want to limit what I can do creatively by coming up with arbitrary rules because sometimes the rules can feel really arbitrary if I'm not building the world around the story. I know a lot of people write fantasy books like in worlds that are already pre-established. Like if they have run a D&D campaign and they've already built a world, then you already like you have a world kind of in rules. So I think it really depends on your story and like what you want to do with your story. But there's no right answer to this. I think it really just it depends on what you want to do. I would say stop world building before you get bored with it. Are there any types of characters you have trouble writing? I've discovered it's difficult for me to write characters that aren't clever. I have the opposite problem. I have trouble writing characters that are really clever. I like really oftentimes struggle with writing characters that make really smart decisions or like are very knowledgeable about certain subjects because they just make me feel like an absolute idiot. And I don't know. I really struggle with the genius characters because I never really know what they would say, especially if like I have one character in my book, The Love Trials, who has like an eidetic memory and he's supposed to be really brilliant and really smart. And like I am not particularly. So I really struggle writing like things that he would observe and things that he would say. And it makes me pretty happy that like I have a lot of time to think about it and like I can work on this book for a year. And so hopefully by the end he'll come off as really smart. But that's definitely because I've spent a lot of time and effort trying to make him appear that way. And I have a very talented team of beta readers who are very smart and are helping me with that. So yeah, that's probably mine. I also like, so, you know, when the characters are supposed to come up with a very, very clever solution to a problem, sometimes it just makes me feel like the biggest moron ever because I just can't think of it myself. So yeah, this is a good problem to have. I think that it's normal to have characters that don't come super naturally to you, but the good thing is that when you're writing a book, it's almost like in a conversation, a lot of the times, like I'll kind of jam up and I won't think of the witty thing to say, or then later on that night, I'll think of the thing that I would have wanted to say in that moment, and it's really sharp and witty. In a book, I can just put that in like those hours later so that my characters can say that witty thing immediately, but it takes a lot more like kind of brain time for me to come up with it. So yeah, that's that might be a little bit of an embarrassing answer, but that's my super honest answer. All right, let's see. How do you decide which character earns the right to narrate a specific scene? Is it always the person with the most at stake? Yeah, I mean, so in a multi POV, I like so the Love Trials is a single POV, but I've written books that have multiple points of view before. And in a multi POV, I usually pick the character that, yeah, either has the most at stake, is going through like the most emotional turmoil, or is just going to be like, it's going to be the most interesting to see that scene through. Or if like that character is like going through a character arc, I want to pick, and like they need to have something happen to them around that time, like to push them into, growing in a certain way, then I'll choose them to narrate it. But it's a little bit of an art form. I kind of go off of my gut feeling. Um, but yeah, I think it's usually the one that is like that would have the most at stake, or if it relates to them in some way. Like if I don't know, I in one of my books, I had a character whose younger brother went missing, and, like, the scene where, she discovers that he's missing, obviously, that has to be narrated by her because that's gonna have the biggest impact on her. Or, I have, like there are also characters in a lot of books with, like, narrator limitations, so I had another character in that same multi-POV series that could see ghosts, and the other characters couldn't see them. So if I had to have the ghosts be a part of it, if I had to have a character, like, have FaceTime with ghosts, or if a ghost held a clue or something to push the mystery forward, then I would choose that character to narrate it. But there are occasional filler scenes that, like, I mean, not filler scenes, but like scenes that could go either way. And at that point, I just choose the one that I either enjoy writing the most or that I think would be most interesting to see that scene through. All right. Thank you guys so much for all these questions. Um, and oh, thank you so much for the gift. That's very generous of you. And thank you so much for coming out to the live stream. um, Let's see. If you could direct the film adaptation of any novel, even if it's already been adapted, which would you choose? Including my own. Obviously, I would choose my book, The Love Trials, just because if that was going to be adapted, that would be pretty amazing to have that big of a role in, like, that's every author's dream, is to have that kind of role in bringing to life their own story. Like, I'm working on a it's not a graphic audio, but like a multicast audiobook adaptation of The Love Trials, and that is like kind of my first brush into something like that, where you work with actors and like bring the story to life in that way, and it's just been so much fun. And so I'd imagine it's just like 10 times as cool when you're like putting it together as a movie. As like a separate published book, I don't really know. I don't know. I just read the I don't even know if I can. I just read the Mind F series by S.T. Abbey and was absolutely obsessed with that. Like, I just read that and binged that this past week, and so that's really fresh on my mind. And so if that ever got adapted, I think that would be absolutely incredible. And I absolutely love that series. So that will be my answer if it's not a book that I have written. All right, let's see. More questions. I'm debating between trad pub and self pub, mainly because most self pub authors who are successful say that it's basically a full-time job. Would you say that's true? Yeah, it's it's an enormous amount of work. It To do it successfully, it's a lot of work. Because I mean, you have to just be your whole publishing house. Like, you have to write the book, you have to distribute the book, you have to figure out how to format the book, you have to figure out how to sell the book, you have to market the book, you have to do like control everything, and it is a lot of work. I would argue that, I mean, unless you have a really, really rare trad pub deal where they handle a lot of that stuff for you, really to sell your book at all, no matter which publishing method you choose, it is a ton of work because you still have to find your audience, you still have to connect with your readers, you still have to put yourself out there, and TikTok marketing, especially, and like just social media marketing, organic marketing can be a lot of work and a lot of time. So I wouldn't go to self pub I wouldn't go to trad pub just because you think it's going to be less work. It's going to be work for you regardless of which publishing path you choose if you want to sell books. There are flashes in the pan all the time where you get really successful, very lucky people that get great trad pub deals and really don't have to do anything, but it's unlikely that that is going to be the case for most people. Like that's not most people's reality. So yeah, but I definitely it is a lot of work and I love it and I'm so grateful that I get to do this, but it's not easy. um all right. I'm 55 and just wrote my first novel. Congratulations, that's so exciting. I'm on disability and have no extra income for an editor or cover artist. What would you suggest for me? I never even thought I would finish, so I'm proud I did. I'm proud of you too. That's fantastic. Congratulations on finishing your book. That's a huge deal and a huge accomplishment. Let me think. So there are a bunch of options for you in terms of cover design that you don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on a custom cover. There are and you can get like a Canva subscription, and you can design it yourself on Canva. You can even get a free trial, I think, for like 2 weeks, and you can design it on Canva and then you can cancel your free trial. And that is the completely free, no cost option. I think BookBrush also has something like this. It has like kind of a cover template generator, and you can pick from all their different cover templates and use something like that. And then they also have a free trial. I'm not 100% sure whether there are charges hidden in there because I just don't remember off the top of my head. But BookBrush and Canva would probably be like the two free options. And then there are also a bunch of cover designers that will sell pre-made covers. So there's you can buy an extra cover or like an already professionally made cover for, I don't know, like between 25 and $100 in there somewhere. And these are always covers that cover professional cover artists have already made. And then you just put in like your book's name and your author name, and then you can use that on your book. So that's another really low cost option. I don't remember the names of different cover design companies off the top of my head, but I know that they exist on Facebook and there are people that will sell pre-mades all the time on Facebook. I think with editors, I mean, I'm always pro having a professional editor if you can, but I would recommend working with beta readers if you can, like free beta readers. Go on social media and see if you can, or on Facebook or wherever, I don't know what genre you're in, but wherever your readers might hang out. Like TikTok tends to skew a little bit younger, and Facebook tends to skew a little bit older. And so try to go where your readers are going to hang out and make some videos about your book. Like make a video saying like, hi, I just wrote a book and it's about this. Like, would anybody be interested in beta reading it? And or put some excerpts on there, put some quotes on there, see if you can drum up a little bit of interest. And then if you get any beta readers from there, then use that feedback as an edit, because that is going to help improve your book significantly. Another thing that you can do if you're looking for more of a copy editor instead of a developmental editor is I would recommend going and getting a free trial of Grammarly and using Grammarly as like a grammar checker and just going through and catching little errors. It's not foolproof. I use that on all of my books just to try to catch little things, but it also sometimes creates errors and gives you the wrong suggestions and it doesn't catch everything. So I use Grammarly and then I will put the whole thing in Word and have Word read it back to me with the voice to text thing, and then I will read the book on the page while I listen to it, and that will I'll catch most things. There were a couple little typos that slipped through after I did that to the love trials, but my ARC readers were gracious enough to point them out to me, and so I'm hoping now that all of the typos are taken care of. I know that there's only one. Oops, forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I am just going to do that right now. I know that there's one typo in the love trials that it's I think one of the dialogue quotes, it's supposed to be in italics, but it's not in italics. It's a straight dialogue quote, and it should be in italics. But I've just been too tired to go back and re-upload all my files just to make that one dialogue quote in italics. So hopefully people aren't really going to notice that, but yeah, stuff slips through all the time. I had one funny typo that slipped through to my ARC readers because it wasn't, I mean, it was a typo because it was not my intended meaning for the sentence. but at one point the character was like crying heavily, and I had intended for her to like say, I cover my mouth with my hand, but instead I say I cover my hand with my mouth. And so it like read that she was like eating her hand in distress. And so little things like that still slip through, but it's absolutely better than nothing. And I still do it with all of my books. And like if I didn't use Grammarly, there would be many more typos that slipped through. So I think that would be my recommendation, is like try to find beta readers, try to find some other person that can give you feedback. And a lot of beta readers will do this for free. And then like Canva or ProWriting, or sorry, Canva or BookBrush, and then Grammarly for grammar checking. Because you can do that as a free trial and then you can just cancel it. I love doing that. I love like I'll try to get all my proofreading done. I'll just re-up my Grammarly when I have to proofread a book and I'll cancel it. Yeah. All right, let's see. Did you have a hard time writing sex scenes? I'm self-conscious and want to get past it. I would say I didn't have a hard time with it. I was surprisingly unself-conscious about it. Maybe just because like I read scenes like that and I wasn't self-conscious. I saw it as a challenge because I've read a lot of bad ones, and like I've read a lot of ones that just kind of took me out of the story and just made me not enjoy the story anymore. And so I wanted to learn, like, I saw it as like a writing upskill challenge. Like, I wanted to intellectually figure out what makes a scene good and what makes a scene corny, and how to write one that, like, is more effective and isn't going to take readers out of the story. I was really hyper focused on like not making readers cringe. So I think I was a little bit self-conscious. I was a little nervous when I first sent my book to beta readers that had like my spicy scene in it for the first time. But then once I started getting some feedback from them, like the first question that I asked my beta readers when they got to that scene was, were there any like words, sentences, phrases, anything that pulled you out of it, anything that like, made you feel awkward while reading it or anything like that. And so because I had that layer of help, like I had a bunch of helpful people that were able to kind of help dissect it with me, like by the time I published the book, like I'm not self-conscious at all. Like I have spicy, like there's only like really one spicy scene in the love trials. But it's out there in the published book, and no, I'm not self-conscious about it, but I would recommend first of all, I'd say don't be self-conscious about it. Like it's not something to be self-conscious about. And I would just treat it like you would any other writing exercise. Like you every what I find about like writing is just you, or at least with writing that I do, is my goal is always to make readers like feel an emotion and feel something. And there, like a spicy scene is no different. It's just the same as any other like emotional scene. Like my goal is just to make readers feel something. So I'm just like trying to figure out how to arrange the language and the sentences and like all of that stuff to make people feel the emotions that the characters are feeling and like stay in the story. I just don't want to pull the readers out of the story. So I didn't have a hard time writing it I mean, it was a challenge because it was new and I didn't know a lot about it, but I didn't have like, don't be self-conscious about it. It's fun, and it's supposed to be fun. So like if you're writing a spicy scene, like have fun with it. It's not supposed to be something that is like weird or anything like that. Like just so many people write spicy scenes in their books, and they're fun to read when they're done well, and they're fun to write. So yeah, don't get in your head about it. And I have a couple of videos on the channel where I kind of share my findings from like my analysis of spicy scenes that I didn't find corny, and like trying to understand exactly how they worked. So I'd recommend going to check those out. All right. How do you track what each character knows versus what the reader knows? Do you use a spreadsheet or a specific knowledge map to keep the secret straight? This is a really big like cluster in the mind. Like this is hard to untangle. And is something that I have struggled with, especially when like writing mysteries and like trying to figure out exactly like tracking knowledge and stuff like that. That's why I really like to write in the first person present tense, because then the reader just knows what the character knows, and then it's not like I have to keep track of it multiple times. I use a plot grid when I outline my books, and that is how I knowledge track. Like I will track what each character knows in the plot grid, and I'll like keep just notes of that to myself. But I don't have like a specific method for this. It's always just been a little bit messy, and I just do my best, and then I'll send it to beta readers. And if people are highlighting things like, how does this character know this, or like, I already knew that, why is this character all of a sudden discovering this piece of information that I have known for a long time? It's kind of hard to have that perspective as a writer. So I'd say take the pressure off yourself, do your best, and if you want to use an outlining method like a plot grid, it's pretty easy to just put in a column into that plot grid and just write little notes like reader knowledge, and you just track what the reader knows, and then like completely separate from what the characters know. And then that kind of helps keep things straight, usually. Sorry, I don't feel like that was extremely helpful, but yeah, a spreadsheet like a plot grid. All right. Sorry, I have to keep sipping my coffee so that I don't lose my voice. Hello. As someone who's had a lifetime experience of writing as a hobby, is it necessary to quit your day job if you really want to take it seriously? Because I really like my day job. No, you don't have to quit your day job in order to take it seriously. There are so many writers and authors who have a day job and also self-publish books and also write books and traditionally publish books, or however, like whichever publishing method that you choose. So no, you absolutely do not have to quit your day job in order to write or self-publish and be really successful at it. I would recommend going and joining like a Facebook group, like 20 books to 50K, because you have a huge range of authors in that Facebook group that are like, a lot of them have day jobs. A lot of them are like, they're authors that are pulling tons and tons of money in. They're really beginner authors that have day jobs who don't have day, like, and everybody just kind of shares what's going on with their career and like shares their numbers and shares everything, like, just gives you a picture of how things are going. And it's a total mind meld. Like, people ask questions constantly, like saying like, things aren't going well, what am I doing wrong, can I get your advice like on this, has anyone had any experience with this? And it's a total hive mind, and it's great. So I highly recommend going. And it makes you feel maybe a little bit less alone if you're like reading other people going through similar things. So no, absolutely not. You can absolutely keep your day job and take your writing seriously. All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of this community, and thank you for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. I don't really believe that I've figured anything out, but I am always learning and always trying to improve. And there's just, the business side of things is always changing. There are always new opportunities, and there are a million ways to do things, like, and not every method is going to work the same for every book and every writer. And so I think that in order to figure things like this out and like figure out marketing and figure out the business side, you just always have to be willing to experiment and learn and put yourself out there and take risks and be brave and try new things. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I really feel like I've figured it out, but I feel like I'm figuring out things out kind of, and like at least what's working for me. But yeah, I'm very, very, very grateful for you being here and for you watching. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so glad that you have learned from my videos, and I'm very, very grateful for you being a part of this community as well. Hi, I'm just around to read chapter 9, so I want to avoid any spoils about the love trials. Oh, that's so exciting. I'm so excited for you to read it. I will not give any spoilers. I'm sorry if I almost did give spoilers. I'm like, my brain is not fully functioning right now because I'm so burnt out from the book launch. I've been going at like 100 for months, like trying to get everything ready and done. And now that it's out there, I just feel like I want to like do nothing but sleep. So yeah, I hope I didn't give spoilers. I really hope that you're enjoying it. And I will be more careful to keep my mouth shut and not say anything about anything that happens in the love trials. So I'm so excited that you are reading it. I hope that you enjoy it. What software do you use for a plot grid? I use Google Sheets. I keep it super simple. You can also use Excel. I've used Excel before. It really depends like what you want to, like how you want to work on it. Google Sheets is just easy because I can access it on my phone. And so if I come up with an idea for some reason, I can go in and just add it, and then Excel stores locally to the computer. So yeah, one of the two. I am writing my first book. How do you go about translating outlines into chapters once you have your general outline finished? Yeah, so we had a question kind of similar to this at the beginning of the stream too, about scenes and like scene structures. I guess the question wasn't similar. I guess my answer is just about to be kind of similar. Scenes follow a very like, what am I trying to say? Scenes follow a very specific, predictable structure. And I really like it when my scenes have kind of like almost a mini story arc inside every single scene. So every scene begins with like an inciting incident, and then it has like a rising action, a climax, and a resolution. And it follows that kind of arc. And then your story also follows that arc. So you have like a giant story arc over the course of your whole story, and then your little mini story arc scenes can kind of be placed on the story arc like that. Like visually, that's how I picture a book. So once I have like plot points that I know I want to happen and in the rough order that I want to have them happen in, I usually go and try to figure out like what a beginning, middle, and end can look like, and like what scene, and like kind of break that down into those little mini story arcs. So this can look like, you know, an obstacle that the characters face, like something that the characters have to overcome. And a lot of times, like, you can't have those totally perfect story arcs in every single scene. Like, you're gonna have to have like little bridge scenes and like, you know, little conversations that are like bridge gaps in those story arcs. But that is kind of what I like to start with from an outline perspective. And then once I actually start writing, then I can bridge and like knit all of them together. So I think, yeah, I start with just like the ideas, and then after that, like I'll see if I can break them down into the story structure. But I have videos explaining the general structure of a scene that I like to follow, and I would recommend going and, yeah, trying to see like how you could piece them into those arcs. Yeah, and then after that, I usually do like, actually, I don't know how I break them up. I kind of do it based off of feeling now, but I like to have roughly a scene per chapter. Like that's like my basic, what I started with. And like when I was kind of teaching myself how to write, I would always just do like one of those story arcs per chapter. And I like to end it on like some sort of little cliffhanger or like a push into the next chapter. If you can find a way to end it on a note that like pushes into the next chapter, then like I really like that structure, especially as a reader, because it just makes me feel like, oh, I'm just going to read one more chapter instead of, you know, having the character just have everything like really neatly wrapped up and like, oh, I'm gonna go to bed all happy and like absolutely nothing is wrong anymore, because that's like, you know, a place people could put the book down. If they have to go to bed like and be all happy, then I'd have that happen, and then right at the end of the scene, you know, they'd wake up in the morning and like something else happens, and then that's where I would end the chapter. So yeah, that is generally how I approach it. And oh, I'm very glad. Thank you so much for watching my videos and for being a part of our community. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, it's really nice having a bit of a post-launch reprieve, because the whole time that you're building up to a book launch, it's just all consuming because you have so much work that goes into it, especially like doing a pre-order like I did. Like I had all these like books to order and like all the orders to manage, and I had to manage the shipping and like the arrival of the book, and like all of like I packaged and sent out every single book that was pre-ordered of the Love Trials myself, and just managing all of that and like actually going and like making sure all the orders arrived on time, and then dealing with all the like, you know, little tiny things that were involved with like running and like kind of, because it was my first time ever doing a direct sale business like that. And then dealing with also organizing all the arcs and like trying to be, you know, kind of a customer service person for like trying to help people get reviews posted and like communicating with people, and also trying to market and like post to social media and build hype about stuff for like, you know, multiple times a day. And then coupled with the nerves of like, oh, my book is going to go out into the world. That's really, really scary. Coupled with like reviews coming in and like, you know, it's a giant tornado of amazingness, but it's also absolutely exhausting. So it's been nice to just kind of take a step back and to just be able to decompress a little bit from that. But yeah, and I am drafting book 2 right now, which is really fun. I'm starting to pivot a little bit more into like summer creative fun time, because what I like to do is like really do a lot of my hard editing, because I live in a very seasonal place where like the winters put me inside a lot, and we get like a lot of tough weather and snow and stuff, and in the summers it's beautiful and we can go outside. So I tend to usually work in like a schedule that allows me to do all of my like really heavy editing, really like tough like launch stuff, like launch in the spring and like edit and work on business stuff in the winter, and then in the summer I can be a little bit more creative and like go outside a little more and like feed the part of my brain that is creative, because I'm always the most creative version of myself when I'm relaxed and not like panicky about stuff. So I am excited to be entering that, and I'm kind of like stress detoxing at the moment. And I've been drafting book 2. I'm like 40,000 words into book 2, and I've just been loving it. So yeah, that's it's been really fun to pivot back to the part of all of this that just totally lights me up with joy. Even though, I mean, this lights me up with joy too, like packing orders. I was so overwhelmed with joy. Like it was just so unbelievable to be able to have that many orders to pack. And like it was like I kept looking around like I can't believe this is my life. And every time I get an order still of a special edition hardcover, I get so excited. Like I usually spend way too long packing the orders just because I just want to savor the moment. It's just like it's such a good feeling to be able to take a book and like personalize it and write a message and like send it to somebody who I know is going to read it. Like it just it's really like the best feeling in the world. But yeah, sorry, that's rambling again. I'm tired. I'm loving my life right now, but yeah, very happy that the book is out there. um Hi, I'm so glad that you could make it. Thank you so much for coming to the live, and for being a part of this community and for watching my videos. I really appreciate you. And oh, and you asked a question. I would so love a video on subplots from you. I get so confused about them. You do an incredible job of explaining things that I actually understand it. Well, that makes me very happy. I'm very glad that that I could explain them in a way that makes sense to you. That's awesome. I can totally do that. I will make a note to do that right now and add that to my schedule. Is there any like thing about subplots that you want, or just like generally how to structure subplots or how to manage subplots or how many subplots, or just what kind of topic would be most interesting? Because I can totally add that. Or I could just do a general subplots video where I kind of cover all those things. All right. I just added it to my filming schedule. Thank you for giving me inspiration. I'm going to be doing a big film this week, and I will probably be able to film it this week. All right. What is your process for coming up with a book name, and do you think there are any requirements for making one, or does it just come from instinct? It does not come from instinct. Titling a book can be the absolute bane of my existence. I don't usually title books until I absolutely have to, unless a title just springs to me. Like, I think I already know the title for books 2 and 3 of the Love Trials. Like, they already kind of just sprung out at me. But the Love Trials I didn't name until pretty late in the process. I was calling it like my um undead serial killers book. I'd call it my hunting serial killers book. I'd do like I had all sorts of different permutations of that. I didn't know what I was going to call it, but then I did a little bit of a brainstorm, like a kind of a keyword brainstorm, and tried to figure out like what title sums up kind of what the book is about, but is also has some sort of keywords for like the paranormal and dark romance, and that kind of signals Saw. And so I knew I wanted to have game or trials or something in there. Originally it was going to be like the Love Games, but I was like, that all I could think of was the Lady Gaga song. I was like, this is not going to work. And I wanted to have love in there, and so like Love Trials ended up kind of just being the title. But I actually asked my readers to vote, and my readers voted on a title. I put that out on TikTok, and I put that out on my mailing list, I think, or maybe just on TikTok, and got some people's opinions. And yeah, that's what came from that. They Stay, I could not think of a title for that for the longest time. if I could go back in time and retitle it, I probably would have chosen something different because it's a little bit unclear like what They Stay is about just based off of the title. If I could have done like I don't know what I would name it, but I've never been particularly talented at titling things. So yeah, I like to just write out a giant list of keywords as a starting place and then start thinking of ways that I can combine those things and combine keywords. I like to use something called Publisher's Rocket to get lists of keywords. The guy who created Kindlepreneur, I think his name is Dave Chesson, made Publisher Rocket, and it's like a tool that will scrape like categories and keywords and things off of Amazon and give you a list of different like keywords and categories and things that you can use to put in your book's metadata depending on your genre. And I generate keyword lists from there, and then I would like mix and match words and see what inspiration would come from that. But keep it playful, keep it fun, and try to put as many keywords in there as you can from a marketing perspective. And then ask people like in your life, just tell them the name of the book and then ask them to give you a guess as to what it's about, or at least a guess as to what the genre is. And then you'll kind of get an idea for whether or not your title is working the way that you want it to. They don't need to know the full summary, but hopefully they'll have kind of a general idea of like maybe the tone from the title. All right. Oh, these are all awesome questions. I will probably just do a couple more because I don't want to lose my voice. I'm also getting kind of tired. So let's see. Any advice on how to write an evil villain in a book who may be depraved but also may have a point? Not sympathetic, but his logic is somewhat understandable. I think the last part of your question is part of your answer. I'd say first of all, treat your villain just like you would any other character. Like they want something, but they need to want it for a reason. And if you want his logic to be understandable, figure out exactly what his logic is and like actually get down to the nitty gritty and figure out exactly psychologically how he works, why he wants the thing that he wants, and go through his entire thought process. If that is sound and if that makes sense, then that his logic is going to make sense to your readers. If you want him to have a point, then I think that you just have to make sure that he has a point to you, and like you have to kind of choose what that's going to be. I think that if you treat your villain like a character, make sure that you understand their thought process and why they want what they want, and choose something that they want that, you as a reader might actually kind of say like, oh, I can see why they want that thing because the logic is sound, then I think that you're in good shape. But oh yeah. Yeah, it is tricky, but I do think that like if you treat them just like any other character, then it's abundantly possible to be able to accomplish that. But yeah, it definitely is tricky. All right. Let's see. My first book was self-published. I've always self-published my books. And by choice, I haven't ever queried books or anything. I've never queried. I mean, I think I did while I was in high school, but I sent it to like 2 agents or something. So I haven't like seriously ever queried. And yeah, I've been choosing to self-publish. All right. I'm writing my first draft in Scrivener and have difficulty tracking things like themes, symbols, and aspects of character development for my characters. How are you tracking this in terms of metadata? So I use plot grids. The way that I track all this is that I make plot grids, and usually I make those in Google Sheets or in Excel. But I did make a video on this channel talking about like how you can use Scrivener to have make a plot grid in Scrivener and organize it so that you can keep track of all of your stuff like that in Scrivener. And what a plot grid is like you have a column that corresponds to every single thing that you want to keep track of and a row that corresponds to every single chapter. And if you watch my video on how to plot grid in Scrivener, I show you how to create those columns and like all those rows, and then you can just fill in the boxes. You can color code them. You can do all of that stuff and keep it exactly in Scrivener. So it's super easy to access. But yeah, that's how I do that. Alrighty. I'm writing my first draft of my book. I'm also a new writer. Do you have any suggestions for how to become a better writer? Becoming a better writer and improving as a writer is something that takes a lot of time. My biggest piece of advice is to be extremely persistent. Your writing is not going to improve overnight, and it's only going to improve by a lot of hard work. So continue to write, and then also like continue to write and write a lot, but be very receptive and open to trying new things. Keep a very open mind, experiment with things, try different people's writing styles, try different strategies and see what works for you. And by being really persistent and by experimenting, eventually you're going to create a process that works really well for you and your writing is going to improve. And also, I'd recommend trying to break things down. Like, don't try to get better at everything overnight and like at once, because that can be really overwhelming. Like, I found it really useful to try to break it down and say like, all right, in this draft, I'm going to just focus on improving my dialogue and just really focus on my dialogue and trying to make that better. And then, my next pass, I'll be like, all right, now I'm going to really focus on my description and just do one thing at a time. Because if I was trying to do everything, then I get overwhelmed and then I'd feel like I suck and I wouldn't have any motivation to continue. And then it would be really discouraging. So try to break it down into bite-sized pieces, be really persistent and have a super open mind and absorb as much information as you can. Oh, for subplots, let me see. Oh, okay. So is every relationship with the main character a subplot? What does a subplot need for plot points to be an actual subplot? Does it stay separate from the main plot or are they combined? See confusion. I totally understand. I can address all of that in a video. Any answer that I give here is just like my off the cuff answer, but I think this would make a very good video. And I'm just gonna like, I'm literally screenshotting your comment right now, so I can just pop that right into my outline. So when I write that video later on this week, I can organize my thoughts around that. I'm going to put a pin in that because I'm going to come back to that with an actual fleshed out video in the next couple of weeks for you, so that I can actually properly organize the thoughts into a really good answer. I can totally address this though. These all totally have answers. I'm excited to film this. All right. All right, I can see two more questions. We'll do two more questions and then I'm going to wrap this up. So do you have a formal editing process with an editor or do you do it all by yourself? I use an editor. I use a professional editor. I actually made a video where I had my line editor on the channel a couple of maybe, I don't know, maybe months at this point, maybe 2 months ago. And that was super fun. So if you're interested in checking that out, I don't know, I think it's called like Line Edit a Book with Me. My line editor's name is Perry Isles and he's amazing. He's a fantastic line editor. So I do use a professional editor. I also do a lot of self-editing. So now for Love Trials, I worked with a team of like 200 beta readers, and I had my beta readers give me a lot of feedback while they were reading of like, I had some beta readers that would highlight repetitive words, highlight things that were unnecessary. And so I did a ton of work myself with my beta readers before sending it to my line editor. I also have one beta reader in particular who is like very, very detail oriented and is also essentially an editor. And she was able to really go through the prose very, very meticulously with me. And we edited it together during that pass. And then by myself, usually don't do a ton of the line by line stuff. Like I'm mostly focused on story and like trying to convey emotion. And then I work on the details later, like with beta readers, with like editors and stuff like that. But the thing I do always do myself is like after I've worked on my prose with beta readers, after I've figured out all the details, after I've worked with my line editor, I run it through a program like Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid, and then I will go through and make sure like from their scan there aren't any typos, and then I will do the proofread myself. So I have Word read the book to me, and this can take a long time. This took me forever. This was like a week of really intensive work for the love trials because I don't know why I thought this would take me like 2 days. It's like a 600 plus page book. But I was being held hostage by the robot voice in Microsoft Word, like for hours a day. I was listening to that. But I would have that read the book back to me while I looked at it in my vellum file. So I wanted to actually see it on the page as it was going to be printed, and that I do myself. So a combo. There's a lot of like self line editing that you can do. I just really like focus all of my energy on story and emotion. Yes, he is. He's absolutely fantastic, and I highly, highly recommend him. If anybody is looking for a line editor, I highly recommend Perry. And yes, it is very, very good to have that many helpful beta readers. I was absolutely blown away, and I'm just so filled with gratitude for everyone who beta read the Love Trials and who has joined kind of like my beta reading cohort. I am so, so, so grateful because the book that I sent to beta readers is so different from the final version. I just got a text yesterday, or like a message from one of my beta readers yesterday, and she told me that she finished reading the final version, and she was like, whoa, you changed it so much and it made it so much better. And it's really like, I took that book as far as I could by myself before I sent it to them. Like I was like, I don't even know what I would do with this book now. Like I have no perspective. Like this is as far as I can go on my own. And then as soon as I got all their feedback, everything like clicked into place and I got total clarity over everything. So I highly recommend working with beta readers if you don't already. All right. One more question, and then we will wrap it up for the night. Do you think a writer can publish books in different genres, or should one use multiple pen names? Yeah, publish books in different genres. I think a lot of people use different pen names just for organization purposes and like for branding. So it kind of depends on how different your genres are. I think that if you write like in similar genres, you can totally write it under the same name. If you write something like completely different, then I would probably separate them just from a branding perspective. If, you know, like with my name and my pen name, I write like thrillers with like kind of they're like, I guess, paranormal horror thrillers with like a bit of romance is kind of what ties together They Stay and Love Trials. But Love Trials it's pretty different than They Stay, like because it's older. It's got like it's more of like I don't even know what genre it is. It's like enemies to lovers, dark romance, horror thriller, suspense book with like, you know, there's a million genres it can kind of fit into. But They Stay is not a romance the same way that Love Trials is. Like it has some romance in it, but it's also like YA, and Love Trials is NA and more adult. But that like they're, you know, dark stabby books and I can publish my dark stabby books all under one umbrella. If I wanted to go branch out and like start writing like Western romances, I would choose a new pen name for that because it will be very confusing from a branding perspective. If on my website it has a bunch of like really like lots of blood and lots of gore and lots of scary stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like, read my cowboys. So from that kind of perspective, it's good to use multiple pen names. So it really depends like how different your genres are. Like the difference between They Stay and Love Trials is like, I don't know, this is really simplified, but kind of like Stranger Things and Saw. Like they're both different but similar. And like they have some paranormal stuff tying it together. So they're similar enough I can publish it under the same name. But yeah, that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah, like if you write kids books, you'd use a separate name for that. So it depends how different you want like what your writing is. But all right, one more question. Where can I find some beta readers? Oh, you said never mind. Okay, never mind. I found my beta readers on TikTok. So wherever you want to find beta readers is like, it differs for every single writer. But we've been here for an hour. I am so grateful for everyone who's come out tonight to hang out with me. Thank you so much for joining me on this live stream. And I will hopefully have a normal video for you again next week, because I'm going to sit down and film this week. I'm just still kind of tired and didn't have anything to post. And I never want to post a video on this channel unless like I feel that it's of quality and I'm happy with it. So just out here doing our best. But thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for asking questions. I hope you have a really fantastic week. And yeah, if you weren't here at the beginning, I asked everybody kind of what times usually are good for them to be doing these live streams. I've been doing them in the evenings, like to try to kind of make them available to people on the East Coast and on the West Coast and like people in the States. But I know I also have subscribers who are not in the US. So if you have other times that you really want me to do streams, drop a comment down below so that I can see it. And yeah, have a good night and have a good week, everyone. Happy writing. Bye, everybody.